Hi, my friends. Hello. Welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Evie. I'm your host, life and confidence coach and business mentor. And this is the Unstoppable You podcast, where we talk about all things soulful business, about creating so much belief and confidence, self-trust, worthiness, manifesting from a place of wholeness, about inner work and outer work, creating exceptional businesses that are led with soul and service. And so much more, all the stuff in between. So welcome back. Now, my loves, it's been a time. We have had a couple of weeks off from the podcasting because life has been lifing. And I'll share my 2 cents on that in a moment, but it's so good to be back. Like, it really is. I've missed podcasting. I've missed being behind the mic, and I'm excited for today's conversation. So I hope you love this one. Now, first up, my inspiring quote for the day. And now this is very much in line with what I wanted to speak to today. And there's going to be lots of different topics that I weave into this conversation about personal branding, about online business, about the state of AI and how that can impact us and our businesses, about just essentially the online space and social media, and really about what I truly believe business is all about, and about what your greatest gift is to your people, to your audience, to your clients. And so I'm excited for the conversation. If any of that sparks something for you, this is absolutely the one to listen to today. All right, here is the quote for today. Your brand is the single most important investment you can make in your business. That is by Steve Forbes. I'm going to read it again. Your business is the single most important investment you can make in your business, by Steve Forbes. Ain't that the truth? Okay, where do I want to start? So firstly, a little backstory. A couple of weeks off podcasting, my team, my loves, because life has been lifing. We have had minor surgery, hospital visits for sickness, viruses in our household that have just knocked us all. We've had a whole lot of renovations and things like that going on, as I'm sure you know if you've been listening to the podcast this year. And basically, time in my business has been really focused on serving my paid clients as much as I possibly can, really holding deep space for them in our calls, in our messaging support between our calls, and really, really servicing them. So I've been a little bit quieter online and in the podcasting world, but it's bloody good to be back. So I'm excited to dive in today. And I was umming and ahhing about what I wanted to speak to today. And that's because there was so much that I wanted to say. And I was like, how do I condense this all into a cohesive podcast episode? So I'm going to try my best today. Now, this conversation is inspired by a few conversations that I've had recently with online business owners, coaches, space holders, consultants, people with service-based business owners, essentially, and they have some kind of online business. So one of the big hurdles I've heard, and I've certainly heard this for many months now, is how do I show up in a noisy online world? Like, social media feels so different now. Social media used to feel really fun and engaging and social, and it's so different now. And it used to be a place where they'd make sales and connections and relationships that were so supportive for them in their businesses. And while I still very much believe that is true and absolutely possible, it has changed. Certainly, it has changed. And the world has changed. The online space has changed significantly. And you know what? It's only going to change some more. And so what I really wanted to say to that was that now more so than ever, building a personal brand is so important for business. Is so important. If you are a coach or a healer, a counselor, a space holder, if you are some kind of consultant, if you work in the health and well-being space, energy healing, etc., like all of those types of roles and jobs and positions and businesses, it is so important to recognize, first and foremost, is to recognize that you have a personal brand, that you are a personal brand, and also to really start to embrace that and to really start to build your personal brand, knowing that that's going to support your business tenfold. I mean, it is one and of the same, essentially. So I wanted to really speak to this, and I also did a masterclass on this to my mastermind girls at the start of the year or earlier in the year, and we talked a whole lot about like how to build a personal brand. Some of the key things that I'm gonna share a little bit of an oversight of some of those things for you guys to consider. So some really practical things about building a personal brand and becoming a person of influence. But I also wanted to talk about like your leadership and your legacy and your authenticity online, and especially how we can bring that into your personal brand so much, because I think that is crucial. That is so important. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room being AI, because that has significantly changed everything. And it's only going to become more disruptive, I think. And that's not to be negative Nancy here, just facts and evidence. But there is a real opportunity and a real need to build more personal brand, more of a personal brand, and a presence online, as opposed to AI generated stuff. So in a world where information essentially and things done for you, many of the data processing and simple tasks are all done by AI now, and absolutely will, if not already, then it is so important that we really remember what it's not ever going to replace. And that is humans. That is human connection. That is human relationships rather. That is real conversations, real talk, real people, right? And that's, if you are a coach or a space holder or a consultant of some sort, then there's always going to be a space for you, and that's never going to be replaced by AI. And it just means that it's even more important to start to lead with that and bring that online more, or start to share that in the social media spaces that you're in. Because that, I think, is what we're all really, really craving. I mean, that is essentially what social media was like certainly when I first started my business. Was never about like a whole lot of information, was never about 10-step plans to all of this stuff. It was never about, sure, there was some of that value in content online, absolutely, but so much of it was like real life, was human connection, was people having great conversations, was interacting with other people, was commenting on stuff, was having DM conversations and replying to stories. And while that still very much happens, and I'm sure many of you are still doing that, like keep going there, it does feel somewhat different now, right? And I think that has shifted and changed a wee bit. But what is never going to be replaced, like I said, is your authenticity, is your human connection, is the realness of being a human. Of the vulnerability of being courageous, of true sacred leadership. Like that is never going to be replaced. And that is the thing that we're going to want even more so now, more than ever, and even more so into the future, I believe. Okay, so I want you to think about you being a personal brand. Now, for some of you, especially if you're newer into this world and the space, are going to be like, cringe. No, I don't want a personal brand. I don't want to be the face of my business. You might be wanting to have a different business name. You may have a different business name that you work under, that you practice under. That's absolutely fine. But remember, you are a personal brand as well, and you still have a personal brand no matter what name your business is. And that is going to be so important. I think, the research has shown this so clearly, is that people are buying less and less from big commercial companies, from big faceless companies and brands ultimately, and really wanting, being more cautious with where they're spending their money in terms of like, not cautious, discerning. People being more discerning about where they're spending their money, who they're choosing to follow and support. And that is so important. So we need to be showing our values, our, what we believe in as brands, as business owners, the values behind it, the ethics, all of that kind of the energy, your mission, your values, your why, all of that is so important, and so important to communicate, most importantly, through your work online, through your content, etc. Because that is going to be the thing that I think is a lot of the deciding factor for people. And so we're seeing this big shift of moving towards more personal brands. Even if you have a business, say, selling products, for example, you still want to be building a personal brand behind that as well, I believe, and that's going to be really supportive to funnel into the other. But for many of you here will have service-based businesses, and so very much you are the business, right? You are the service, you are the space holder, you are the healer, you're the coach, you're the mentor, the guide, etc. And so really you are the business. Now, that's not to say that you have to share all of yourself online. That's not to say that you can't have any boundaries around what you share, or the stories that you tell online, and what you share ultimately. You absolutely do and can and should. And also, people want to know more about you. People want to know more about you, the person that you are behind the brand. They want to know more about your personal life, more behind the scenes stuff, more content that just can't be generated by AI. And so, yeah, really thinking about you as a personal brand and embracing that first and foremost, I think is the biggest step, and the biggest thing that I would share first and foremost is actually just deciding and embracing and accepting that is the case. And actually you're going to use this to your advantage now. Okay, so this isn't about becoming an influencer. This is about becoming a person of influence. And there's a big difference there, right? You are a business owner, you're selling stuff. You are selling a service, you are selling a product, you are selling an offering, whatever that might be online. It might be a group coaching program, a mastermind, one-to-one service of some sort. It could be done for you stuff, but most of the time it's going to be some kind of service, right? And so you are a business owner, and you're not necessarily just an influencer, selling other people's stuff or acting on behalf of other brands to recommend their products and their services. Because I think that's a key thing. And I remember talking about this with my masterminders, and we were like, yes, that's right. It's not that I suddenly have to become overnight. I have to become an influencer and share my whole life on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever. No, you certainly don't need to. But it is about sharing your values and about sharing behind the scenes stuff, about allowing your customers, allowing your community to really get to know you. And so much of that is about being authentic. So much about that is like really sharing your truth, about not sugarcoating it, about not watering it down or hiding away behind the scenes or hiding behind, what you think you should be saying or a certain identity that you've taken on. This is really about peeling back the layers and being who you truly are, and allowing your soul essence, your soul's energy, the space that you hold, the magic that is you, really allowing that, like your presence, to be your offering, if you're a space holder, certainly, and also to be your greatest marketing asset, essentially. You sharing your energy and your presence online is going to be the greatest marketing tool, and actually the easiest marketing tool in many ways. That I really want you to start to consider, start to embrace, start to share more. And that's the stuff no one can take away. There's some stuff AI and stuff can't replace, etc. Because it's you. And that's a dynamic thing. That's a fluid thing. That's a deeply personal and authentic thing to you. And so no one else is that. And that is your secret sauce. That is your essence. It's your magic. That's it, right? So we need to really think about you and your presence exactly as you are is enough. And you are the offering. And the more you can start to show up and share your essence and your energy online, your soul essence, your soul's energy, which ultimately is part of the business's energy and your personal brand's energy, then the more people are going to feel that, the more people are going to love that and connect with you. They're going to want to build a deeper connection with you. They're going to want to build a relationship with you and step closer with you, and ultimately, most likely, become a client of some sort at some point in time along their journey. That's simple business, ultimately, at the end of the day. It's simple business. And so when I think of people who do this really, really well, it's one of those things of like, I'm going to give an example. I've just recently signed up to a sacred leadership program, which I'm so excited for, nervous and excited. So exactly the right place. Really ready for this. And this particular person is someone who I really look up to, is, I would say, a mentor of mine. And yeah, someone who I've really admired in this space for a long time. And as soon as she launched this, or sort of teasing that there was something coming, dropping some hints, I was like, oh, I'm intrigued. If it's something that she's creating, then it's going to be amazing. Like, I want to be in that room with her. And that was the feeling I got instantly. And that is certainly how I made my decision to purchase, to work with her. And I know of other people who have done a very similar thing with this particular person, but also with other people. So that someone has a really great personal brand where it's almost like you get to the point where you're like, I don't actually like the details of whatever they're selling or doing is almost irrelevant, almost. And that actually you just know that whatever they create is going to be amazing, and you want to buy from them, or you want to be in their space, or you want to be in the room. And so you do. Like, that's the power of a really good personal brand, that it's almost like you can sell anything. And now that's not to say that you're going to sell anything, and that's not to say that ideal clients and community building and all of that stuff is not important. It is, absolutely. But that is the power of a personal brand, where you've built such a beautiful connection and relationship with your community, and you've shown up with such certainty, with such sovereignty, with so much deep trust in yourself, and really being a leader, like showing up from a place of sacred leadership, of true authenticity, and you being a leader, like going first, about standing for something, about, hey, I'm offering this thing, come along, join me, or whatever it is, right? And that's the power of a personal brand. So this stuff works, right? And this is so important. And that's the stuff where, like, I know this person, I know this mentor, I know her integrity, I know her wisdom and how deeply committed she is to this work, about her legacy, about, so much of that stuff I already just know. And therefore, and that's obviously through her being who she is. That's through her standing in her sovereignty and her leadership and her soul's work, with so much trust in herself, and ultimately really sharing that from a really beautiful, sacred place. And so, yeah, that's the power of a personal brand, where you just know, and that comes from that person owning their personal brand, and owning their essence and their soul's magic and their calling, and being so deeply committed to that it just shows it. People just feel that, and they know that, and so they're like, yeah, I want to be in the room. Yeah, I'm in. Like, it's an easy decision. So that's the power of a personal brand. I wanted to share that story. But yeah, so much of it, I think, really comes back to you deeply honoring yourself, your authentic magic through this, being really courageous and brave, like sharing more of yourself online. Yes, with boundaries. Yes, being discerning around these decisions. Absolutely. But sharing. And I think one of the biggest part of this is making sure that you're always doing your inner work. Ultimately, you can only be, the depth of space that you hold can only be as great as the depth of space that you hold for yourself. It's a little bit like, the love that you can have for others is equivalent to the love that you have for yourself, etc. Like, it really is an internal thing. And so the more that you can be devoted to your craft, the more that you can be devoted to your soul's work, the more you can be devoted to yourself, ultimately, about your healing, about any of your stories or limiting beliefs or your own personal development. That is going to be so huge and so pivotal for your work as a space holder, as a leader, as a coach, as an energy worker, as a space holder, etc. And ultimately for your personal brand and your business as well, right? So really, really committing to that. And I've got some exceptional clients at the moment who are just so devoted to being, it sounds so cliche. I was going to say being the best version of themselves. It's true though. It really is. You know, them realizing, hey, I'm holding myself back in this way, or hey, I realized I was kind of stunting my growth or limiting my potential here and my success because of this story that was holding me back or this past experience. And I say that in the life coaching space as well, where you're really committed to doing the deep inner work that's going to ultimately unlock so much for you. And so that's what it requires, I think, to have a really successful online personal brand, to have a great business where selling is ultimately just an extension of who you are. And that those decisions become easier and easier when you've built a really beautiful community around that because of your integrity, because you've communicated your values, because people understand the depth of your passion and your service and your commitment to your mission and your craft, that they know that you are the real deal. And I think that that's just such a beautiful thing. Anyway, I wanted to share a couple of practical things, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of practical things, especially if you are in business, as most of you will be if you're listening to this and you got this far into the conversation, is about content and how to become more of a person of influence and how to really share and start to build more of your personal brand online. And that is a rule or an idea that I got from Daniel Presley. He's an awesome online entrepreneur and business owner. And he talks about the 7-11-4 rule. Now, this is about basically building out content, value, and ways for people to connect with you that's going to help you build your personal brand. Now, for some of you, if you're newer into your business, if you're just starting out, this might be something to work towards. If you're later down the track, it might be just finessing this. It might be just adding an arm into this. So you may have already ticked off so much of this. So the first one, the 7, is, do you have 7 hours of really good content online for someone to binge? Do you have 7 hours of content online for someone to come into your world, be like, oh my goodness, this girl Evie, she's amazing. I want to binge all her stuff. I want to watch all her videos, etc. Do you have 7 hours worth of content? Now that can be lots of different forms of content. That could be Instagram stories. That could be highlights that you've saved. It could be carousel posts. It could be a podcast. It could be a YouTube channel where you've vlogged or there's some kind of video content there. It could be a blog that they're going to read and binge. Could be lots of different pieces of content. I think I've covered most of them, but you get my gist here, right? 7 hours, a whole day of content. That seems like a lot, but when you've been in business a while, you will accumulate a lot of that content, right? Especially if you've got some kind of long form content. For example, a podcast show, it could be any kind of video content that you upload to YouTube, for example, or a blog of some sort. So that's the number 7. Now, the 11, so 7-11-4, the 11 part of this is 11 interactions. So is there 11 different ways that someone can interact with you and your business into your content? So is that leaving a comment? Is that sending you a DM? Is that maybe you've got a freebie so they can sign up to your freebie and they get themselves on your email list and then they can go through your beautiful email welcome sequence and et cetera, et cetera. It could be watching different forms of content and they can comment, they can reply, they can share it. They can go into a free community space for yours. Maybe it's a channel or a Facebook group or whatever. So is there 11 different ways that you can, different touch points essentially? So this is where we play the long game in business and we're thinking about lots of different ways that people can interact with you and your content and your personal brand online. And now number 4, the 4 a part of this, the 7-11-4, is 4 different platforms. So I told a story to my mastermind girls when I delivered this masterclass to them earlier in the year about how I found this awesome girl online on TikTok, of all places, loved her stuff, binged a whole lot of her videos, etc. And then I was like, oh, I've done that. Now what? I wanted to deepen into that. I wanted to watch more. She was it's a random example, but she was essentially an influencer. And so therefore the 7-11-4 rule doesn't always apply so much, right? Because they're an influencer as opposed to a business owner. But I was like, oh, I wonder if, so she was into makeup, right? And I wondered if she had makeup tutorials that I could watch on YouTube. So I was like, oh, I don't want to just watch like 1 minute clips now. I want to watch something deeper. I want to get to know her more. I want to deepen that relationship and connection with her. Essentially, this is not what consciously goes through my mind, but this is the process that we all go through as humans. And I was like, oh, but it's a dead end. So she's an influencer. She's a TikToker. Right? And so really thinking about those 4 different platforms. So how can people engage with you in different ways over different mediums and interact with you in different ways? So maybe it's that they stumble across you on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever. Then you can link your website. Maybe you link your podcast. Maybe you link your YouTube channel, whatever. They can go and explore those different platforms to get to know you in a different way. You know, for example, Instagram and TikTok, for example, are going to be shorter form videos. It's going to be carousel posts. It's going to be Instagram stories or stories. But they're only so long, right? So yes, you can watch a whole lot of them, especially if you've banked up a whole lot of content, but there's no way of like deepening that relationship in long form content. So something like a podcast, a vlog, blogs, you know, long form videos, etc. So the 7-11-4 rule is a really good thing just to keep in mind about how you can start to build out more content that enables you to really shine as a personal brand, for someone to come into your world and really start to connect with you, to learn from you, to get value, obviously, ultimately. But really, behind the scenes, you're weaving in all of your content, you're weaving through your values, you're weaving through your why, you're weaving through your passion and your purpose. You might be weaving in behind the scenes things so someone can really get to know, oh, she's a mama too, or she also has a golden retriever, or she loves nature walks, or whatever it might be, or I love seeing her morning coffee, or whatever it is that you're sharing online. Just giving some funny examples there. But you know, it's little things like that that enable the client, the person on the other end, really connect with you. And it's those little things that we'll never get from those big companies and big corporate companies and businesses that really matter, I believe. And I think are only going to matter even more as we move into this crazy AI world. So, my loves, I just really wanted to share my 2 cents on like how to keep showing up online in a noisy online world when AI is really forefront of mind for many of us, where information is like at our fingertips everywhere we look. People aren't seeking out information, they're really seeking out connection. And your presence, your energy, your soul's gifts is enough. And those are your greatest assets. Like that is your offering. And that is your greatest marketing strategy as well. Remember, guys, like you being you is so, like it sounds so simple. And yet we all, I think many of us struggle with that online. And I think that that's such a shame, because that's such a key to successful business and creating a really great personal brand where there's so much integrity and there's so much love and passion that you feel through that. So start to think about that. Start to think about who really embodies this well, who you've seen, you know, the example I gave where you're like, I don't really care about what it is that this person's creating. I want to be a part of that because I love her and her essence, and I trust her personal brand, and I understand her values and all of those sorts of things that go into the decision-making process. We need to think more about like really being committed to your craft, really being committed to your soul's work and your inner work ultimately, because you are now a sacred leader, you are a space holder, you are a coach, you are a service provider, you are a consultant of some sort, and you are the business, you are the personal brand. And the more you devote and give back to you and do your own inner work, the more it's going to unlock so much for you and your business. It's a huge reason why I'm doing this next program with my mentor, because I know that I want to keep growing as a human, and I'm so deeply committed to my craft. and to myself. And I know that as I evolve and grow as a human, my business is going to up level and grow as well, because it's one influences the other directly. And so I'm really excited for that. And there's just one example of being deeply committed to your craft and deeply committed to yourself and your own inner work, knowing that is directly going to influence your business and your sales and how you show up, your personal brand, and so much more. So really being committed to that, and just not holding yourself back, being who you truly are, thinking about sharing your authentic magic online, sharing a bit about your personality and weaving that into what you do, not having to show up in a certain way or being someone that you're not. This is really about your true authentic self shining through, owning that, knowing that is so enough, and that presence, that energy of yours is your greatest gift. It is your offering, and it is your greatest marketing asset as well. So my loves, that is it from me today. It's so good to be back. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please reach out if you listen to this one and love it. Send me a DM on Instagram. That's probably the best place. Would love to hear from you, and how it's landing and supporting you. And of course, podcast requests. If you're still here listening, you are a long-time listener and deeply committed to this. So I would love to hear from you if you've got other questions, suggestions, conversations, people, guests that you want me to have on the show. Please do reach out and let me know. I would love that so much. All right, gorgeous ones, I will leave you to it. I'm looking forward to seeing your personal brands and supporting you to grow that. It's going to be incredible.